Call to order. That's, City Council meeting, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight's agenda. We've got the roll call first, please, Jeff.
Yes, Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Sheldon. Here. Councillor Ramsayer.
Here.
Councillor Hanley.
Here.
Councillor Hutchinson. Here. Mayor Walker.
Here. Very good. Tonight's agenda, we have the consent agenda with just the meeting minutes. We have new business is the Clackamas County IGA on recycling, the Sandy Police Association collective bargaining agreement, the League of Oregon Cities legislative priorities, the financial forecast for the general fund, and reports from city manager and council reports. Anybody have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. The council welcomes comments from the public at this time. So if you're attending the meeting in person, please submit your comments. Well, we don't. Are any of you all interested in making comments? No? Okay, very good. All right. And we didn't have anybody sign up?
No sign-ups today.
Okay. All right. Is there any response to previous comments?
There was no public comment last
Very
meeting,
good.
Mayor.
Okay. The first item on the agenda then for action is the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the draft meeting minutes from the August 3rd city council meeting?
Make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second
the motion.
I have a motion from Council Sheldon and a second from Council Ramsayer to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote nay. Abstain. And one abstention, please. Councilor Small. Thank you. New business, Clackamas County IGA Opportunity to Recycle Plastic Pollution and Recycling Modernization Act Cooperation. Welcome.
Rick, you want to come
Taking
on?
that up.
Yeah. I'm going to make an attempt to summarize this,
Okay.
but I'm very grateful to have Rick here from Clackamas County who can add in anything that I failed to mention here. So as you see in the staff report, council, we have a long-standing relationship with the county to help us meet our recycling outreach and education obligations under an old piece of legislation called the Opportunity to Recycle Act. You see in the council packet that there's a 2008 letter of understanding between the city and the county with regard to that. And they do that for lots of other cities in the county as well. Okay.
Yep.
So, is that, okay. So that's one piece of it. Then a few years ago, there was a new law called the Recycling Modernization Act, which added new requirements on local governments to do things like ensuring reduced contamination of recycling streams, reporting to DEQ on all of this, so, and other things. Sandy obviously is not equipped. We don't have the personnel to do that. So we're grateful that the county provides this service on our behalf. The county would like to capture all of this into a more formal IGA rather than, this letter of agreement. And so they're doing this they're pursuing these IGAs with all of their cities. And that's why you see the draft IGA in front of you tonight. Part of that is, if we were to do this ourselves, we would be eligible to get reimbursed for some of these costs from this fund into which materials producers are now having to pay. It's called what is it?
Extended producer responsibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, or the group is the producer responsibility organization. We can go acronyms all night.
So you can go deep into that. We're obviously, electing to forego that, and the county would receive that reimbursement money for the actions that they're doing to fulfill our obligations with regards to this legislation. So Rick is way more versed in this than I am, and is here to answer any questions you might have about that. Josh has had a chance to review the IGA language. He requested a few changes. The county made almost all of them. But we can talk more about the actual IGA with Josh if you have those questions. So at this point, I'll just turn it over to Rick to add anything else that you'd like to add.
No, I think Rick Winterhalter, Clackamas County Sustainability and Solid Waste. Nice to see you, counselors and mayor. With the, our relationship with the city and through your service provider, currently Hoodview started with Mount Hood Refuse. We've been, when we first implemented the curbside recycle bins and when the county got a grant, all of the collectors who shared routes with the cities, we put bins everywhere so that everybody had that opportunity. And so we had a pretty informal agreement up until that 2008 letter of understanding. And now with this new piece of legislation, it just provides an opportunity for us to formalize that agreement a little more and bring all of the things together as Jeff suggests. So happy to try and answer any questions that you have.
I guess my question is just confusion about how this program interacts with our waste management Hoodview contract. What do we have? Contract?
Franchise.
Franchise agreement with-
That's right.
yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, how does this kind of interact with that or change rates or anything like that?
We work very closely with all of the service providers in the region, including Hoodview that serves, the county and other cities and that sort of thing. So with this, for example, the funding, Jeff didn't say, it's $3 per capita. And so with that funding, we did some multifamily, bought containers for collectors, and Hoodview being one of them. So containers and carts in this round. So we work very closely with the collectors and putting these programs together because we couldn't do it without them. We come up with the ideas and they come up with ideas and we try to put them together and get good programs out there for the citizens.
So this is something that would expand the amount of recycling available to our residents?
It's very interesting because, this law was essentially intended to help the state catch up to where we all are. There's some, obviously Lane County, Marion County, Deschutes County, and our Tri-County area, was far ahead of many places throughout the state. So this was an opportunity to try and get all of the communities within the state to have a similar list as ours. So the collection list. So we won't see very many changes right away, except for these types of things, on this contamination reduction, because we've seen, when we had our little curbside bins, we were looking at about 3%, contamination because we were all source segregating everything, right? As soon as you start throwing things into a big bin that has a lid, as my colleague said, the lid hides many sins. And so, our contamination rate has gone up in like 17, 23, up into the 30s at times. So it's a challenge, people put things in there that are not on the list, then that just prevents everything from getting all the good stuff. Then it's harder to get recovered when it goes through the sorting and that sort of thing. So that's the whole goal of this is of that $3 per capita funding is on contamination reduction. So we're going to be doing a lot of education. You're probably going to start seeing, coming up here, the last part of this year, we're going to start piloting on cart tagging. I don't know if you've heard of that, but essentially it's, hey, there's something, we're looking at 4 major contaminants, the plastic bags, garbage, glass, electronics, because you guys have all probably seen, batteries are a problem. So trying to keep those major things out of the bin. And so that's where we're going to be putting some money so that the collectors all have cameras on their hoppers to try to keep the prohibited materials out. And so in this case, if they see one of those items, they will have a tag and put it on the cart so that folks are notified. And then if they get a couple of those tags, we reach out to people and have direct communication with them and then start thinking about other forms of, just trying to get them to do it correctly. So that's where
Any
that's what we're
questions?
doing.
I have one question, one comment. I mean, as long as you're trying to keep this has nothing to do with what we're about to vote on, but when it's dark, I can't tell the green one from the blue one and the black one. They all look the same. Anything you can do down the road?
Sounds like you need a flashlight.
Yeah, you're probably right, but I think as you guys are thinking about ideas to help contamination, I think making them a little more visible at night would be helpful. But the question for you is, how does the Metro collection play into this? Is it at all related or not? Particularly like the hazardous waste, the Metro.
Okay, so that the household hazardous waste facility doesn't have anything to do with this.
So that's
Um,
completely separate.
yeah,
funded separate.
totally separate. Yeah. That's funded by the tonnage fees that go in that we all pay into.
Thanks.
So you were saying $3 per capita,
Mhm.
and so is that something that's added on to the bill, or is that something people enroll in if they want?
No, so that's money that's coming from what I said, the producer responsibility organization. So the legislation set up this organization and then works with all the brand owners, and we're talking about Unilever, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. I mean, every consumer thing that we go out and buy are all paying. If they sell into Oregon, then they're paying a fee that this producer responsibility organization is setting. So it's a little bit of a black box, but there is a fee, and out from that fee, then that $3 per capita throughout this, for the state is generated. And there are a couple different ways to get the money. You can get the money right up front, or you can do the work and be reimbursed. So multiple ways of doing that. So there's, there's not going to be any additional charge on anybody's bill for this work. And we hope that, some of these things like buying these containers, not a lot of them, I mean, in the scheme of, what the service provider, the work that they do here, it's a small amount, but it will be called out. We'll be sharing with the city, that, hey, when it comes rate review time, hey, these things were purchased by us, not by them. They shouldn't be on their books. So.
Any other questions or comments?
I move to authorize the city manager to execute the proposed IGA with Clackamas County regarding opportunity to recycle and plastic pollution and recycling modernization act cooperation.
Thank you. I have a motion from Counselor Smallwood. Can I have a second?
Second.
A motion from Counselor Smallwood and a second from Counselor Sheldon to approve authorize the city manager to execute the proposed IGA with Clackamas County regarding recycling. All those in favor vote aye. Opposed, vote nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the Sandy Police Association bargaining agreement.
Good. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been in bargaining with the Sandy Police Association, represented by Clackamas County Peace Officer Association, for what feels like a little bit of an eternity at this point, but we've made some really good progress over the last month and a half or so. Happy to present this to you this evening for your approval. I will note that the association did take this to its membership and they voted in favor of it on August 3rd. So this is the final piece in the puzzle to get this signed and adopted and implemented. Some key takeaways. Well, let me back up. I apologize. There's been a variety of language changes to this agreement, most of which do not have a monetary impact. It's either best practice updates, state and federal, law changes that we needed to make, or best practices among other police agencies. But the financial components that do have an impact that I think are noteworthy for you this evening include Article 19, Article 20, and Article 24. I'll just run through those very briefly and then open it up for any questions. Article 19 is specific to salaries. The first year of this contract, we're recommending a 4.5% cost of living adjustment across the board for all bargaining unit members, with the exception of sergeants. They had a wage increase at the beginning of that fiscal year. They were previously on the general services salary schedule. Last year, they became part of the association, so they had a raise that was reflected in their general services contract when they came over into the bargaining unit, which is why they're not receiving any modifications in that first year of this contract. Also modifying the salary schedule to reflect 3% between each step. And then we will have a retroactive payment due to all bargaining unit members, since this contract is retroactive back to July 1st of 2025. For the second year of the contract, which aligns with the current fiscal year that we're in that started July 1st of 2026, we've got a 5% COLA for all bargaining unit members. And then year 3 of the contract, 4.5% COLA, and modifying the salary schedule to reflect 4% between each step. And this is in an attempt to mirror what our comparable agencies offer in terms of the salary structure, become more in line with the overall market, and make sure that our officers and sergeants and professional office staff are being paid a competitive wage. The second article is premium pay. The only change here is just adding a third tier of longevity for anyone that has 15 or more continuous years of service. They would now be eligible for 3% longevity pay instead of the current 2% that is in practice. Excuse me. And then Article 24 is related to retirement. The city currently offers $115 in payment to a deferred compensation plan. We are recommending increasing that to $175. A portion of that increase is just shifting some uniform allowance that is currently offered to the association members away from this reimbursement program and just putting it into deferred comp for them. Saves the bargaining unit members the headache of having to track receipts and submit for reimbursement and follow all the payroll processing timelines that we have in effect, and saves payroll and accounts payable the time of tracking those reimbursements, making sure that they are for eligible expenditures and in the right fiscal year, and just kind of cleans up some internal processes that we have. I do have a note in here. This, the overall impact of this contract is about $200,000 over what's in the existing biennium. And we'll bring back a supplemental budget if and when needed later on in this biennium, probably spring of 2027, to make any necessary budget adjustments. And the tentative agreement is attached for your review. Happy to answer any questions about the process or the specific language in the agreement. Yeah.
Okay, any questions? I just had a question about the premium pay. That's in addition to the COLAs
Correct.
and the years of. Okay.
Yeah, so the premium pay article is much larger than just longevity. That includes any certification pay, detective pay, graveyard shift pay. No changes are being made to those other incentives or premiums. It's just this one adding that third tier.
Okay. Well, I know it's been a challenging year for them, and I appreciate everybody's effort at bargaining over the last 15 months or so and getting us to a satisfactory agreement. And it's, like I said, they've had a challenging year and they're worth every dollar of it. So I support this. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion, please. Make a motion that we accept the agreement with the Clackamas County Peace Officers Association for the Sandy Police Department budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Sheldon and a second from Councilor Henley to approve to authorize the city manager to sign the collective bargaining agreement between the city of Sandy and the Clackamas County Peace Officers Association on behalf of the Sandy Police Association. All those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote nay. Motion passes. Very good, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the League of Oregon Cities legislative priorities.
Like it's hot potato tonight. It's your turn, Jeff.
This one, I think, council is pretty straightforward from the staff report. You know, we do this
Don't
every
jinx
2
it.
years. What's that?
Don't jinx it.
Okay. So every 2 years, the League of Oregon Cities asks its members what their top priorities are in an effort for the league to honed down on its own list of top priorities. The mayor served on one of the policy panels, which is excellent. I sent a thing out to the council asking for input on this. We did receive, I think, 3 responses back, and that's what you see on this list here. But I think it is pretty representative, in my own judgment, of this council's priorities. So the ask tonight is for you to give your thumbs up on this list of 5, or if you would like to swap one out, you can look at the list linked in the staff report of the other options available. So I'll just stop there and let you all discuss.
Is everybody in favor of these priorities? Okay, very good. And is this, when I go to the LOC conference, is this how I vote, or is that a separate vote?
I don't believe this, I could double check this for you. I don't believe this is actually put to a vote. Because what they do is they're processing, 200 different entries, and they just kind of do their
Well,
magic math.
Okay.
Am I wrong about that?
Well, there's some sort of, we vote, has anybody else done it? Okay, maybe I'll check
Yeah.
into it to see. We do some sort of votes at the kind of the end of this whole session.
Yeah, on Saturday morning,
Yeah.
there's usually, and I know part of that I think is board of directors.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
I thought there was some priority stuff on, yeah.
I could
Okay.
be wrong about
Yeah.
that. I could be
All
wrong.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, Jeff, if you don't mind though, because we do have guests in the room who maybe don't know what these priorities are, do you mind just reading them off?
Sure. Happy to do that. Thank you. Okay, so here are the 5 that are identified. Water reuse.
No particular order, right?
No particular order. Water reuse, which is LOC will advocate for policies and investments that support the development and expansion of water reuse projects throughout Oregon. For example, the sort of thing that we're pursuing in our latest wastewater facilities plan for groundwater recharge of highly treated effluent. So that would be one. That was the one that the mayor was on the policy panel for. Second one is infrastructure funding. For obvious reasons, that's very relevant to us because we have these very expensive projects, and to the extent that we can get state assistance for any of that, it just means fewer dollars that have to be paid by our ratepayers. So that would be excellent. Third one is ratepayer assistance for obvious reasons. If the state can help ratepayers with their bills, that benefits our residents. Fourth one is a different topic. Public meetings law clarity is the way that they phrased this. So the interesting path that we've been on with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission and their interpretation of public meetings law and the need for clarity around all of that and kind of common sense measures for implementing that. That would be this 4th bullet here. And then the last one is water workforce development. One of the things that doesn't get a lot of publicity is that it can be hard to hire some of these jobs. It's highly technical. They're extremely important jobs. And to the extent that there can be training or certification help or other things like that to help those career paths be more viable, that's great for us and for all the other cities in Oregon too.
Thanks, Jeff.
I think you can say it is hard to hire,
Yes.
and our cities have trouble over, I've been on council, finding and keeping people at a Veolia.
great, very good. So,
There's no motion here.
no,
I was just,
yeah,
yeah,
you got your marching orders in
I
yet?
think we have our marching orders.
Very good. All right. Then the next agenda item is the financial forecast for the general fund. Tyler, are you doing that?
That's me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I want to preface with, we spend a lot of time talking through our rate models for our utility funds, water, wastewater, Sandy Net when we just did their, master plan and related sort of rate study and analysis that we needed. But an area that we've historically lacked on is good general fund projections and analysis and thoughtful, review of what conditions do we have now and what conditions are we going to see in 2, 4, 6 years from now. It's been on my to-do list for a long time, and apparently I decided to prioritize that when I already had a lack of time. But here we are tonight, trying to just do the first stage of this discussion. So I'm not asking for any council action this evening. Really just kind of want to walk through what we're seeing, what our projections look like for the general fund, and then highlight a couple areas that I have some concerns over. But this will be a topic that we continue to talk about between now and the budget process, and certainly the budget's going to reflect much of those conversations that we have. So, for purposes of this analysis, I looked at the general fund, and for those in the audience or anyone watching from home that doesn't have intimate, knowledge of what the general fund consists of, that's really the main fund that houses all of our direct city services. So anything from administration, municipal court, police, library, parks, recreation, seniors, IT, finance, HR, planning, building, the whole sort of gambit. Anything not a utility basically is housed within the general fund. And most of those departments receive general revenue. General revenue consists of property taxes, franchise fees, state shared revenues, things of that nature. There are some departments within the general fund that don't receive a direct allocation of general revenue, and so those are not included in this analysis. They're paid in other ways, and their funding is captured by increased expenditures in other departments. So it's
Building.
right.
Okay.
Yep. Building, library gets a very, very small dollar amount from the general fund, so they weren't included in this analysis. That's a talking point we can mull over if there's desire to do that, but we've excluded the indirect service departments. So administration, legal, finance, HR, and IT, those are all funded by indirect services. Those are indirect services that are funded from direct services. So transfers from water, wastewater, library, police, etc. So don't want to double count. Don't want to double count them. Excluded library, both Sandy and Hoodland. As you all know, the Hoodland Library doesn't get any general revenue. It's outside of our city limits, but the Sandy Public Library does get about 1.6% of the general fund revenue. Half of that or so is debt service for the building, and the other half is used for operations. So it's a very, very small dollar amount, and just opted to remove it from this initial conversation. And then the building department, because building is entirely self-sufficient on the permit fees and things that they collect. So what is included then is mayor and council budget, municipal court, police, recreation, senior services, parks and trails, planning, economic development, facilities, and non-departmental. Non-departmental, for those of you that aren't aware, is kind of that catch-all. So that's where the city pays for our insurance premiums, any memberships that the city that could benefit the whole organization, like League of Oregon Cities, that's paid for at a non-departmental. And then the cost of running this building, so the electrical and natural gas bill and such that is related to City Hall comes out of non-departmental. So it's kind of just the catch-all. And so what we've seen historically in the general fund is annual revenue growth of somewhere between 8 and 10%. In large part, that has been driven by development in the city and property tax revenue growing at a pace that is larger than the statutory 3% increase that we all know about. We've seen years where property tax revenue has gone up closer to 6%, just because we had 100 new homes come online or something like that. And as we all know, development has sort of slowed during this moratorium, but I also have concerns that it will remain a little flattened given the existing moratorium. Still, market conditions, takes longer to sell houses. It's not as much appetite to purchase homes with current interest rates. So I'm not projecting that we'll see no growth beyond the 3% in property tax, but I'm trying to be realistic that we're probably not going to be in that 5 to 6% range for the next couple of years. The other things that have grown within the general fund that get that 8 to 10% range has been a lot of our state shared revenues and franchise fees. And those are driven by, PGE, Northwest Natural, Hoodview, or Waste Connections. We get a portion of their revenue. And so if PGE has a rate that goes up, we're getting our 7%, I believe, of that rate as part of the franchise fee that is paid to the city. So we've seen all of those things go up. Pretty healthy over the last several years as well. But going into the next 5-year period, I'm expecting that same revenue is only going to grow at about 6%. And for all the reasons that I just said, right, we don't have the same amount of development happening. we don't have on the state shared revenue side of things, so liquor tax, cigarette tax, and other state shared revenue that's allocated on a per capita basis. So if our population isn't increasing at the same rate, we're not going to see those same rates of increase for those collections as well. Of course, this could change, right? As we complete additional wastewater projects and phase out of the development moratorium, there may be excessive pent-up demand for development as we have more ERUs. So this is all subject to change, but this is what I can tell you based on the last 4 years, 5 years, and what I'm looking at right now. This is kind of my analysis. I'm gonna pause because I think I see a question coming. No? Okay. On the expenditure side of things, for the next 5 years, we're expecting those expenditures to grow at a rate of about 8% annually. And those expenditures include salaries, benefits, materials and services, and then the transfers to those indirect service departments that we already talked about. It's no secret that public employees are expensive, right? I think we all know that. There's a lot of roll-ups in terms of PERS pension costs and insurance and things like that. But unlike, or not unlike every other employer, we've just seen costs go up in terms of our insurance premiums. I think last year was 8%. We're projecting like a 14% for this next year. So we continue to see both on the property liability insurance as well as health insurance, the premiums have just kind of skyrocketed. I know my personal, property and liability on my homeowners policy has gone up. I'm sure you've all seen that in your auto rates and things. So we are not exempt from some of those same increases that the average person experiences as well. At the same time, we also pay higher utility costs, both from our own utilities, but PGE rates, Northwest Natural rates, all of those things impact the city as well. So we're seeing an increase in all of those costs. Just from a very high level analysis, we've got revenues that are only going up about 6% per year, and we've got expenditures that are going up 8% per year. And as you go into the next page on the staff report, there's a graph there that is pretty not flashy or beautiful presentation, but you can visualize that you've got expenses that are outpacing revenues, and that sort of gap just continues to kind of grow into the next 4 years. And I talk about in here a little bit, it's easy for us to absorb a little bit of a deficit, right? If we've got 1 year where program revenues come in low, or we encounter some sort of expenditure that we weren't planning for, we can cover that. That's what we have contingency for. Where my concern comes in is when we don't have a plan for a recurring deficit and we don't have a strategic initiative to either generate additional revenue streams to offset that deficit or strategically reduce services or hold expenditures steady. And so that's why I'm having this conversation with you this evening, is to sort of just wave the white flag, so to speak, that we need to just be cognizant about where we're allocating our resources. If we're developing new programs and presenting those to council as an option, we need to be coming to you with and here's how we're going to pay for it. Need to be really mindful of not utilizing our contingency or beginning balances for things that are not one-time purchases. So if we know that we're going to need to replace a roof, okay, let's plan for that. Let's build it in, but that's not an ongoing expense. We can absorb that. If we know we're going to, have a recurring maintenance issue, we need to talk about how we're going to pay for that recurring maintenance issue. And do we spend some money up front to fix the problem, or do you just, put a Band-Aid on it repetitively and end up spending more money in the long run? So, the main message that I have for you this evening is that expenditures have been outpacing revenues for a few years, but it's been at a much smaller dollar amount and not really noticeable. We're transitioning out of that to some larger dollars. And we just really need to be thoughtful over, the next several months as we kind of close out the fiscal year that we're finishing up right now, as we go into goal setting, as we go into budget prep, making sure that we are cognizant that there is a limitation on our resources and that our expenditures really need to align with those community priorities. I think going into again, I don't want to have a budget meeting because we haven't advertised a budget hearing, but it's going to be part of the message you'll see during that budget process is, if it's not urgent and important this next 2-year period, let's take a pause and just see how development comes in. focus on the things that we do really well, the programs that we do that generate the revenue that we see to offset the cost of those programs. Let's kind of not take an entire pause by any means. We want to offer new programs and do fun, cool things for our community, absolutely. But it just needs to come with a little more analysis and a little more thought before we pull the trigger. Happy to answer any specific questions. Again, I don't have, an ask of you this evening, but just want to make sure this is on your radar as we go into the next several months of financial planning for the organization.
Don?
So I hated your example of a roof or.
And those were not good examples,
No.
yeah.
So, and you broken record, but those kinds of maintenance, whether it's big, long-term, every 20, 30-year maintenance, or whether it's annual maintenance, needs to be accounted for in the asset management plan and budgeted accordingly. So that we know if we have a pause for a year or two, what risk are we taking on by deferring maintenance on a roof or something else? And you've gone a long ways towards starting to account for asset, the true cost of assets and that total cost of ownership for buying an asset. But I would say, from where we were, we've stepped up, but where we need to go, it's a huge amount of data in addition that it's going to be critical when we go into the budget meeting, I think, to have that at least for the big ticket asset items so that we're making informed decisions. That's one point that I wanted to make.
And then if I can piggyback off of your point, I think, the quick thing that comes to mind is like vehicle and equipment replacement. We've done a fairly poor job of that historically. It's not surprising that we need new vehicles periodically, right? We know what that general
It
lifespan
shouldn't be a
is.
surprise, right?
And I would say that we aren't ever surprised by it. We just haven't acted on how to plan for
Right.
the event.
Right.
And so that's what we're working on internally now, is how to better account for that.
That's what I'm looking for, so that money doesn't just go into a contingency that then gets spent for other things down the road, but it gets set aside for a specific vehicle replacement, 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Anybody, any questions? I think just building on Don's thought is the facility condition inventories for both parks facilities. We're doing it on streets, we're doing it on a lot of things, but the buildings and the parks facilities are probably the two things that don't get done on a consistent basis and tracking
And vehicles, equipment, I think
Yeah,
all three of
vehicles,
those are the
equipment,
big
yeah.
dollar ones.
Yeah. So just making sure that we've got that. And now we've got a facilities person who's, hopefully got there's so many other programs out there that can kind of, you can kind of just inventory everything in the different buildings, AC, HVAC, all carpeting, all that kind of stuff, and really inventory it and what needs to be replaced, how much it's going to cost. I was a little bit, because you were kind of saying 8% and all that, and then I started looking at the numbers, and I'm not a finance director, obviously. But okay, so in, using your graph, I was kind of sitting here doing a little bit of some spreadsheet stuff. And, it went up, the revenue expenses went up to 9 million in 2027 expected. And so but it was 6 million in 2022. And so that's, a 50% increase going from 6 to 9. And so then divided by 4 years, it's like 13%.
Yeah, that's a great question. I should have, apologies for not including this. So I did remove certain revenue or expenditures from prior years to arrive at those 6% future forecast. I stripped out things like our ARPA funding that, was one time, not recurring.
Good.
Pulled out some of the transfers of those ARPA funds, like we transferred money to Urban Renewal and Sandy Net for some specific programs. So those are reflected in the total expenditures or total revenue that we have gotten, but not used in terms of calculating an average historical revenue or average historical expense. So that's where you see some of those
The difference
differences.
between 8% and 13, because I kind of feel like, okay, if it's 13, that's
No,
a lot worse than 8.
Thank you for catching that. I
Yeah,
tried to, present real numbers, but
Yeah.
have a projection going forward that was mindful of
Yeah.
various one-off instances
Yeah,
that
right.
we know we're not gonna see again, or
And what's
not likely to expect
Black
again.
Star?
That's where we're at today.
Oh, okay.
We're in
Black
fiscal year
Star.
27.
All right.
Um,
Yeah.
yep, so yeah, we can kind of see where we've been at, where we're at today and where we're heading.
Another comment, several years ago when Rochelle first came on board, we did a whole lot of, in that Parks and Rec area, we did a lot of analysis to make sure we were properly charging for the services that we were providing to community members and others. I think that's as a principle, we need to make sure that's across the board, especially getting ready and going into that budget cycle. 'Cause I think it's this year we're doing the budget cycle, right?
This fiscal year,
This coming
not this
spring.
calendar
coming
year, but
spring.
yeah, this
So
coming
we'll
spring,
start the
yeah.
budget cycle. So
Yeah.
I think having that better asset data and having the departments really scrub their numbers with the expectation they come in, given the deficit, they need to come in with a neutral sort of approach.
Yeah.
Especially for services that are externally provided. The ones that we always question in those budget meetings are the senior services to people outside the community, outside of the city limits, make sure that that's being accounted for properly. And Parks and Rec, those things as well. So I know building department, that's all rolled in. Those are easy, but
I mean, I should probably say, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
no, I paused. Go ahead.
I just want to, reiterate in case we do have staff watching. This is not a a meeting to kick off like a layoff or reduction of service conversation. I want to make that very clear. This is just we have a structural problem that needs to be addressed, and this is the first step in addressing that. So if there is staff watching, this is not a, chopping block conversation. I want to make that very clear.
This is the necessary steps we take so that we don't have to go through dire cuts and
Yes.
layoffs down the road. Because if
Correct.
we ignore it, we will.
Well, and frankly, part of the reason why we haven't had this conversation 2 or 4 years ago is because we didn't hire a bunch of staff and incur ongoing expenditures when we got COVID money, like many other organizations did. So, we've done a better job than some at, keeping a good pace on our expenditures and trying to avoid this, but at some point you can't avoid, the inevitable. And so it's time to have some of those harder conversations about how we prioritize services and the cost for services.
Thanks.
I think I remember having a conversation with you, it's been a couple months ago at least, about the budget process. And, when I got to be mayor 2 years ago, I kind of was, got into it and, the ability to kind of look and see how we're doing that and the process that we use and the amount of conversation or communications we have between kind of the departments and the council. We didn't really have much input in that, but what I would like to say, and again, this is, if not for me as, mayor, elect for next time or the next person who ends up being mayor, I would like to have a little bit of time between now and March to talk about how, what are some improved processes that we can use to kind of communicate with the departments and the staff about, what we should be prioritizing, what are their ideas for cost saving or revenue raising or things like that.
Mhm.
So I'd like to kind of offer everybody here that opportunity to kind of improve the process. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. We can talk more about how to structure that or schedule that over the next
Yeah.
5-ish months.
Yeah.
Start the budget process a little sooner.
Well, I think there's 2 different approaches, right? There's one that I need good information from you before we start a budget process. That's why we do goal setting first, but part of that can also just be better understanding of what services are provided, how those services are funded. Certainly when I present a budget to you, the budget committee and then the council has discretion to modify that, but I want to present something that is reflective of all the different things that we've already talked about and prioritized. So we can figure out the best schedule for that over the next several months.
And that's a good point. And the interactiveness of the budget and the goal setting.
Yeah.
Is probably, I didn't recognize the connectivity as much in the past few years. So good opportunity. Any other comments or questions? Very good. Thank you.
And I didn't break this out by department. This was kind of the first stab of let's talk about the general fund. So if there is other questions you have, or you want to see something, drilled down a little bit more, shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk through that and figure out a way to present that in an upcoming meeting as well. But just wanted to kind of first shot across the bow and get this in front of you all.
Thanks.
I think we should circle back around to this right before goal setting. So we
Yes.
can have a reasonable,
Yeah.
and maybe even dive into our numbers a little more.
It'll help ground the goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, report from the city manager.
Yeah, thank you. So first, I meant to mention this earlier when we were talking about the collective bargaining agreement, but I wanted to just say thank you to Detective Boyes for being the representative on the police side of things, and then also thank you to Lieutenant Craven, who was at every meeting, kind of representing the administrative, hand of the police department, and then certainly HR, finance, and Jeff Nye as part of that team. But thank you to those that were not me for being a part of the process of helping us get to an end result that is, I think, favorable for everyone involved. Reminder that we've got the drop-in event this weekend at Cedar Park. We've got a handful of signups already, and I certainly assume that we're going to see a lot of the day of registration, but just a reminder that we've got that coming up. There was a request at the last council meeting to look at some alternative transportation opportunities. We are unable to secure transportation with our transit department without cutting other services that same day. And so we won't have transit providing shuttle service this year, but we will proactively get them looped in earlier next go around so we can schedule that transportation from Sam going forward. So just putting that on your radar. We talked about the LOC conference earlier. I guess I'll just mention while you're sitting here that Josh and I will be doing a panel or being part of a panel on, I don't know what day it is. I'll have to look.
Friday?
It's a Friday
It's Friday.
with 2 other cities, essentially how to utilize your city attorney. So have a robust conversation with the mix of other cities and both in-house and contracted legal representation. So for those of you that are coming, you can come and listen in, or I don't know, maybe it's recorded. I'm
Or
not sure.
avoid it.
Or avoid it. Yeah, feel free to avoid it if
Should
you'd
we put
like.
that on our YouTube channel?
No,
No?
I would prefer not. And then last but certainly not least, I mentioned a couple meetings ago about some one more night of night work with ODOT. I just finally heard back today about that work. And it will be Wednesday evening into Thursday of this week. ODOT and their contractor are putting out door hangers. They were supposed to be doing that today with notice. I could talk to you after the meeting to see if that was accomplished or not. This was, at 4 o'clock when I got this email, so they could have been out putting door knockers out at that, or door hangers out at that time. But noticing residents within 300 feet of the work site. And just for one night only, they are installing a new catch basin and storm line at Meinig and Proctor. And so that will have the signal out of commission and the lanes closed, which is why it's really sort of necessary to do it at night when there's the least amount of traffic traveling on the highway. We're working on putting out some Facebook communications around that as well. So it'll be widely known. And then again, everyone in the 300-foot radius of that work site.
What's
should
the
have
timing?
So I think their standard hours that they say are 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., but I was told that it's going to be similar timing to what was done at the last unannounced night work, which I think wrapped up earlier in the evening. It was not all the way until 5 a.m. So it's expected to be kind of that same window.
It's fair close.
Hotel room.
You can stay here. I think we have a cot. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Todd?
Cool. As we're looking at value from our accounts and things, I would just like to go on record as saying that I don't feel like we get great value out of our League of Oregon Cities agreement. I feel like that organization has lost its way and has become somewhat irrelevant in terms of trying to represent small communities in against a big a couple big city areas. So just a statement there.
I would agree with that statement.
Okay. I don't know how that feedback should or could get back to them, but I'll vote with my feet this time by not going to the conference. First of all, it's good to see that we have candidates running for all the open positions coming up. I just wanted to make myself available to anybody who is running. Feel free to call me, ask me anything. Several of the counselors provided that to me when I was contemplating running. It was really valuable to be able to have those conversations. So pass that on to anybody that you think may have interest. It is the 17th of August, which is my wife's birthday, so I would be remiss not to thank her for letting me come to things like this over the last few years. She won't listen to this because she's never come to want to listen to it, but you guys can tell her that I spoke about her fondly.
Happy birthday, Jane.
Yes, exactly. Special thanks to the police department for, working through those union things. Sometimes, we've seen those things go south in the community. When I first moved here, the teachers' massive strike, it was nasty, caused a big rift in the community. I love it when we're able to work through these difficult things and all walk away happy. So thanks to everybody involved in that. Last, it is that time of the year again to be thinking about Winterfest. May not seem like it, but it's getting here quick. So I would like to have a briefing in the next, whenever you can get it on an agenda, to get a briefing on what the plans are for Winterfest.
There's a subcommittee that I think do you remember?
There
who's
is
on it? I
a
can look it up.
subcommittee on paper. We met once last year.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm,
So if I'm still on that subcommittee, then I'd love to have that subcommittee meet again.
yeah, I guess I'm assuming subcommittees kind of organize their own meetings as needed.
I'll check in with our Parks and Rec director
Yeah.
and so we can get scheduled. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I think you're on that too.
There is no point for me to be on that for this next year, so.
Mayor, the current list on
You're
that
on
committee,
Chrissy,
I don't-
Lori, and Dawn.
that's correct.
Members.
More to come. I'll circle back with staff and
Thank you. That's
figure out
it.
next steps.
Okay, good.
All right, library board, we did just have a meeting, but this is going back a little ways. Please put on your calendars, October 23rd, they're having a Monte Carlo night as a fundraiser in the library, just to fundraise to make up the difference, for the mobile library.
Awesome.
It should be really, really fun. I know they're looking for sponsors and hoping to get a lot of support for that. Mountain Festival, had their wrap-up meeting. And a big thanks to Lieutenant Craven for being there. One of the big takeaways for that applies to us is they would really love to see some streamlined permitting. As like, I know that when it makes it difficult because they make changes and then we're trying to play catch up, but I think they have it. I think they know what they're looking for now. And so hopefully we can come up with some easier way for everybody.
Agreed. I think we've kicked around a couple ideas internally too. I think one of those is just when we designate Sandy Mountain Fest a community event and do the road closure for the parade and all of that, we can add some other language about specific types of permitting fees or processes so that we don't have this sort of continual check-in. So don't have a formal answer, but we agree and want to see some streamlined
I know
work as well.
it's a ton of work for you guys as well. So thank you for all of it. And speaking of that, thank you for Tyler for doing all the jobs while they're looking for a new finance director. Your plate is already so full, and I think we all see how lucky we are to have somebody with so much knowledge in both areas running our city. So thank you. And one last thing is we are, and I will get emotional, we are just about 2 or 3 month anniversary to our incident that happened in town. And I just want us to keep that in the forefront of our thoughts, as for a lot of us, that incident was, a week long or whatever, but there are families that are still affected by this and will be affected by this for years to come. So I would love for us to, I think we may have a check-in scheduled on our calendar, but just see what we can do to keep supporting these families and those people who are affected. And that's it.
I am happy that we got our contract negotiated with the police force. I think in the last several months, we've seen their value beyond what we take for granted every day in Sandy. On a personal note, my son, who's developmentally disabled, was in a car accident with his direct support professional last month, and I pulled up to full ambulance, fire trucks, police cars, and the officers dealing with my son who can have trouble communicating were so patient and so kind. And you don't always find that when you have individuals who have trouble communicating on a daily level, where they're vocal, their verbs aren't easy to understand, and sometimes they're hard, but that really stood out to me, that not only do they protect us and do their job very, very well, and they're always present and they're visible, but they're also kind and caring, and that's invaluable in a community our size. And so I think it serves us all very well. So thank you, Chief, and your staff. I have farmers market with transit department on Friday. We will be the trolley. Andy Howell, who runs the transit department, has all kinds of fun little fans and cooling towels and bus schedules and trolley schedules, and she is just a wealth of information. And come out to the farmers market, get on the trolley, she'll let you pretend to drive, no holds barred. The only other thing I have is planning commission meeting on Monday. It looks like we're doing some zoning map amendments in the Bornstead Views subdivision, and one other thing on Jacoby Road. So if anybody wants to tune in Monday, it's always a good time at planning commission. So that's all I
Can
have.
you clarify zoning amendments in Bornstead Views?
I cannot off the cuff right now, no, but I can get you guys an answer tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I can forward you
Yeah,
the agenda.
that's great.
And I will say the weather's not supposed to be 95 degrees this Friday like it was the last
That
time
will
we
be good.
were there with transit and no shade. It was
That's
a
like
very
A
warm
little bit
Friday
of potato
afternoon.
oven
So
in that. The trolley
it's
is
gonna be-
great. The windows were opened.
It'll be a little
And
better than
the
last
summer
time.
is lovely. But bring your little fan.
Rich?
Yeah. Like everyone said, I'm really happy that the agreement with the Sandy Police Officers, or the Clackamas County Peace Officers Association for the Sandy Police Department has been reached. As Lindy said, I mean, it's been a challenging time for them. But also they continue the good work. For those of you that haven't seen on Facebook, and that is, you know, they're continuing their doing operations to protect children and working with federal partners and holding people accountable, which is awesome. So thank you for doing that. I got to spend last Thursday at C4, which was really exhilarating. It was about e-bikes and what other communities are doing. The impression I took from it was that there's going to be an effort to maybe bring the county under one kind of thought process under that, or rules. And for one, think it's silly, and I won't vote for that myself, but everyone else can make their own decisions. I prefer to let parents be parents to their kids. But that was Thursday. And then the other thing is, I would really like that we look forward to when we go into goal setting, like I kind of mentioned, that we really do start looking at things from a fiscal, like, is this goal fiscally obtainable? Because it's easy to kind of look and have all these grandiose ideas and that, but it's just not feasible right now with everything that's going on. And so that's what I got. Oh, and last thing, I think to Don's point about LOC, I also think that specifically ODOT, I'm just curious if there's anything that we could do to make them maybe be more helpful. Seems like an organization that is so, speaking of fiscal responsibility, it is so fiscally constrained and going to be asking for money, might try some customer service, but that doesn't seem to necessarily be the case with them. So I don't know if there's something that maybe we could say, or I'm not suggesting that we add it to our LOC priorities, but I do think that as a kind of a holistic goal, you know, more cooperation from state organizations as a whole. And, you know, I think that kind of goes to the Ethics Commission and all of that, that they be more receptive to what the cities are. Because actually, I mean, if you kind of think about it, our country was formed on local government, not big government, but we're kind of going the opposite in that direction. So, yes,
So
sir.
before you leave that, so the governor's office she's got multiple advisors that target each area. And back when Mount Hood Hospital was closing the birth center, I was able to get traction by going that route. And I wonder and in fact, the current ODOT left her organization to become the head of ODOT. So I wonder if there's an angle there that could put some pressure.
Like I said earlier, and I was just gonna say this, are you done?
Yeah,
I don't know who the legislative representative is that's over ODOT currently, but I would encourage us to find out who that person is and have a sit down meeting and apply pressure from that direction.
it's everything, even to the point of the notices going out. Like, if we fail on one little thing, a water pipe breaks with clean water, we're held accountable, right? And yet they can't follow their own rules. It just seems.
It seems as though the legislature has
That's-
put a lot of requirements on local entities, but some of the state agencies don't have those same timelines or obligations to complete work that we do.
They just got run amok.
Right? Yeah.
No, that's all I have.
Okay.
So,
Jeff, I sent you a few pictures. We kind of get those pulled up. In the meantime, I heard about this letter to LOC about Senate bill, and I can't remember what is it? I'm gonna say, I think 415969, something like that, about that LOC wrote a letter, and we talked about having our own letter written. And so that was like Thursday and it was due Friday, and I was trying to kind of respond. And then I pull up the letter to kind of, take a look at it and copy some of the stuff, but it's like 17 pages long. And I was like, okay, that's not in my timeline today. So I did not respond. It's kind of frustrating that.
I did.
Oh, did you? Oh, great.
I
Okay.
took I don't mean to interrupt you, but just
Great. Thank
really
you.
quick.
'Cause-
It was like a 17-page long letter from LOC. About 14 of those pages were specific language changes
Yeah,
that they wanted
yeah.
implemented. I did not include that in my letter.
Yeah,
I took just the main points that, the one size fits all approach doesn't work. What works in a larger community is not going to work in a rural
Right.
community.
yeah.
I meant to say that in my update tonight. I'll send that letter out to you also. You can see what was
That'd be
submitted, but
great.
I did get confirmation it was
Thank-
received and would be added
Thank
as
you.
part of the record.
That's wonderful.
that just
Thank
goes
you.
back to Don's point earlier.
Yeah, I had drafted about that content, and then somebody was rushing me out the door that we were late for something, and so I finally said, okay, I can't, I gotta take something off the list. So that was it. Because I figured, in honesty, how much how much influence is something like that gonna make with them, to your point. I'm figuring that we're gonna be talking about school parking issues in front of the high school and the middle school, Chief. So the fact that we could kind of get in front of that, as far as having the school districts send out, the reminders that, waiting in front of on Bluff Road and waiting along 362nd Bell is not okay. So, if we can kind of have that conversation with Aaron and those folks and the school resource officers to kind of just have them send something out to the parents about what the new rules are. I do appreciate the signing and the stop signing, I think, helped a little bit. And I think, having the signs in front of the bluff helped a little bit. I want to thank all the staff from the city that attend the farmers market. I think that's just been a really neat addition to the program, that folks, I interacted with the library folks on Friday and talked about the Casino Royale program and all that. Regarding the ODOT relationships, I think those are all excellent ideas that you all have brought up, and I think we need to pursue those. One of the things that I recall from years back was that the Public Works Director used to meet with the Region 1 administrator there. There were some local relationships where they kind of went over the status of projects. I don't know, maybe at least probably quarterly, where they just talked about all the different things going on. And I think that I would like to include that level of communication, because I think if we don't have that going on, that's really, your best way of trying to kind of get things rolling. What's the status? Why, we need this to get moving. They're the real doers that are going to make a change. I mean, meeting with the legislature and the mucky mucks is one thing, but it takes a long time to get a meeting and then get any result from that meeting. So I think just working one-on-one with our local representatives in both Troutdale and Portland and Region 1 there would be helpful. And then what have I been doing? Well, do you have a picture there, Jeff?
Which one would you like me to show?
There's 3 of them, just real quick. So what I've been working on is let's see, up at Little Crater. This is a Little Crater Lake Trail up by Timothy Lake. And this is a 48-foot boardwalk that we were able to get a local partnership with the Mike O'Malley Logging, and they donated a bunch of, they didn't donate it, we paid for it, but we got a really good deal on it. Old growth cedar from the Fish Creek, out of the Clackamas fires, roaring those fires, and out of the Fish Creek drainage, they were taking down road hazard trees that were old growth cedar. And so instead of getting some second growth crap from Home Depot that cost a fortune and was really thin, we were able to get 3-inch deck, 3-inch thick decks of old growth cedar. Those are 20-inch cedar rounds there on gravel and curb logs and stuff. That's 48-foot long boardwalk. Go ahead to the next one. And this is also a trail that we've had Tiana and some folks that are dealing with accessibility issues. So ADA wheelchairs. This is step and run, again, old growth cedar. And this is for adaptable bikes for people who are on those kind of not wheelchairs, but more adaptable trails. This goes right out to the Pacific Crest Trail there. And then we'll be working on the third part of it to do to get wheelchairs out to the Little Crater Lake with 6-foot packed gravel trail similar to Tickle Creek Trail. And the same person who built Tickle Creek Trail is out there working on this. And it's been a fun thing to be able to have these partnerships with. We're working with the Ant Farm crew, and we're working with both Mike O'Malley Logging and having these ADA consultants involved. And it's also Tiana was really impressed with the ability to be able to get this wood materials at a reduced rate locally and saving it from the fire. So that's what we've been that's what I've been helping build here for the last month, and we're real proud of it. And we'll have a little ribbon cutting when it's all open, but it's about a third of a mile of trail and stuff. So yeah, it's been fun, and it was actually less smoky up there than it was down here. So that's all I have. 8:34. Anybody else? Call it a day. Great. Thank you very much.